vanished from the earth. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time.
Whenever Ethan tells you we're ready to go, we'll just
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, by the direction of the Committee on Rules, I call up House Resolution 189 and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Calendar Number 22, House Resolution 189. Resolved that at any time after the adoption of this resolution, the Speaker may, pursuant to Clause 2B of Rule 18, declare the House resolved into the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of the bill H.R. 658 to amend Title 49 United States Code to authorize appropriations for the Federal Aviation Administration for fiscal years 2011 through 2014 to streamline programs, create efficiencies, reduce waste, and improve aviation safety and capacity, to provide stable funding for the national aviation system and for other purposes. The first reading of the bill shall be dispensed with. All points of order against consideration of the bill are waived. General debate shall be confined to the bill and amendments specified in this resolution and shall not exceed 1 hour, with 40 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, 10 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, and 10 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Ways and Means. After general debate, the bill shall be considered for amendment under the 5-minute rule. In lieu of the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure now printed in the bill, it shall be in order to consider as an original bill for the purposes of amendment under the 5-minute rule an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of the Rules Committee print dated March 22, 2011. That amendment in the nature of a substitute shall be considered as read. All points of order against that amendment in the nature of a substitute are waived. No amendment to that amendment in the nature of a substitute shall be in order except those printed in the report of the Committee on Rules accompanying this resolution. Each such amendment may be offered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment, and shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question in the House or in the Committee of the Whole. All points of order against such amendments are waived. At the conclusion of consideration of the bill for amendment, the committee shall rise and report the bill to the House with such amendments as may have been adopted. Any member may demand a separate vote in the House on any amendment adopted in the Committee of the Whole to the bill or to the amendment in the nature of a substitute made in order as original text. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the bill and amendments thereto to final passage without intervening motion, except one motion to recommit with or without instructions.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized for 1 hour.
For the purpose of debate only, I yield the customary 30 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, my good friend, Mr. McGovern, pending which I yield myself such time as I may consume. During consideration of the resolution, all time yielded is for the purpose of debate only. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to support this rule and the underlying bill. House Resolution 189 provides for a structured rule for the consideration of House Resolution H.R. 658, the FFA Reauthorization Reform Act of 2011. The rule provides for ample debate and opportunities for the members of the minority party and majority to participate in the debate. This structured rule has made in order dozens of amendments, ranging in a full wide range of provisions in this bill, but also in transportation policy in general. In addition to the 1 hour of equally divided general debate on the bill, the rule has provided for 33 amendments in order, including 18 amendments from the minority, 12 from the majority, and 3 bipartisan amendments. Of the 24 amendments offered by the minority, 21 were made in order by this rule. I point out the number of amendments made in order by this rule by specificity because it is so unusual. The last long-term FAA reauthorization passed Congress in 2007. The rule for the bill allowed for only 5 amendments, and those were debated on the floor. Since the last long-term FAA expired, Congress has passed 18 short-term extensions, and never once have any of the rules allowed for any amendment of any kind debatable on this floor. While many at home may assume that when a House debates something as important as the aviation system, their member of Congress is given the opportunity to offer and submit ideas and debate those ideas on this floor. It's not the case in recent years. Today, we will likely hear from the members from the minority insisting that the underlying bill contains inadequate funding, despite the fact that our nation has and is facing a $1.6 trillion deficit, and we should be tightening our belts just like families across America are doing. We may hear from members from the other side of the aisle complaining that the legislation eliminates government-subsidized essential air services to rural areas of America, despite skyrocketing costs to the taxpayers during an already stressful economic time. And we also hear from colleagues that suggest that the legislation contains a poison pill, and that is a provision of rewriting union rules, despite those rules being in place overwhelmingly effective for the last 70 years. To those complaints, I would specifically and simply ask and suggest vote for the rule. The rule allows for amendments to be debated, alternatives, all kinds of things to be allowed to the base of this bill and debated and heard on this floor, and to me that is a good thing. To be sure, some of the above issues are addressed by amendments, those issues I just mentioned. And you know, they're all going to be debated shortly as soon as we pass this rule and begin debate on the bill. So if you have any concerns with the bill, I would implore my colleagues to support the rule, which allows for those concerns to be debated by the duly elected members of this body. Amendments will pass or fail based on the merits of arguments made by proponents and opponents of these ideas. And if, in the end, the process, the members are still not satisfied with the final product, they can vote against it. However, to vote against the rule, which would allow this debate to take place, suggests satisfaction with the underlying bill as it is currently written. And I would understand that position because I support the bill as well. I support passing a 4-year extension that would allow for long-term aviation system planning instead of a merely short-term cookie-cutter fix that accomplishes very, very little. I support tightening our belt and rolling back funding to 2008 levels to save taxpayers $4 billion over the next several years. I support consolidating aging, obsolete, and unnecessary FAA facilities and expanding the cost-effective contract tower program, which allows airports to utilize privately operated, more efficient control towers. I support reauthorizing that is 100% free of earmarks, tax increases, or passenger facility charges. And the list goes on. But the most importantly in this debate we have here on the floor right now is for this particular rule. If you don't support these things, the rule allows members to bring alternative proposals before this House for an open and honest debate. So once again, Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this rule and the underlying legislation. The committees of jurisdictions have worked to provide us a long-term reauthorization that can streamline the modernization of our aviation system while ending the practice of short-term fixes when it comes to funding this crucial service. I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on the rule and yes on the underlying bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Florida reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Webster, for yielding me the customary 30 minutes, and I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, here we go again. Instead of bringing meaningful legislation to create jobs to the floor of the House of Representatives, the new Republican majority continues to show just how out of touch they are. 2 weeks ago, it was cutting off funding for National Public Radio. Yesterday, it was private school vouchers in Washington, D.C. But today's bill is even worse because this bill will actually destroy jobs. H.R. 658 starts by reducing the Federal Aviation Administration's funding back to the Republicans' favorite soundbite number of FY 2008 levels. We know that every $1 billion of federal investment in infrastructure creates or sustains approximately 35,000 jobs. That's 35,000 Americans who could pay their mortgages and stay in their homes. 35,000 Americans that could better afford to put their kids through college. 35,000 Americans that could help our economy to recover. Instead, H.R. 658 cuts almost $2 billion from the Airport Improvement Program, which provides grants to airports for constructing and improving runways and terminals. This provision alone will cost us 70,000 jobs over the course of this 4-year authorization period. H.R. 658's reduced funding levels will result in the layoff of hundreds of safety inspectors, engineers, and support personnel. These drastic cuts will also delay transitioning our outdated air traffic control system to the modern next-gen system. Without 21st century infrastructure and technology, the United States cannot keep up with our global competitors. It's just that simple. Mr. Speaker, in the past, the FAA reauthorization bills have garnered a great deal of bipartisan support. Unfortunately, this time is very different, because in addition to the inadequate funding levels, this bill continues an emerging and disturbing Republican trend toward destroying the collective bargaining rights for American workers. From Wisconsin to Ohio to Maine, we have seen how Republican politicians are attempting to destroy a century of hard-fought labor protections. This bill represents more of the same. This bill would reverse a national mediation board rule that allows a majority of those voting in aviation and rail union elections to decide the outcome. Instead, Tea Party extremists want to count workers who chose not to vote as automatic no's against the union. I wonder if my friends on the other side of the aisle would be willing to use that same standard in congressional elections. I wonder if they'd agree that every registered voter who didn't vote for whatever reason last November would automatically be counted as a no vote against them. I doubt it. Because in the 2010 midterm elections, 40.9% of eligible voters cast ballots nationwide. Under the standard in this bill, not a single current member of Congress would have won election last year. Not one. Let me make this a little more clear. Neither I nor my colleague from the other side of the aisle, the new member representing the 8th District of Florida, would be standing here today if this undemocratic standard is enacted. In fact, my friend from Florida would have received only 23.1% of the vote, well below the 50% threshold included in this bill that he supports today. I asked my friend from Florida, where in the Constitution does it say that any registered voter who doesn't cast a vote in an election has their vote counted as a no? If this standard doesn't make sense for members of Congress, if we're unwilling to use it on ourselves, then it isn't fair for working people trying to organize. Mr. Speaker, this bill unfortunately abandons a long and proud tradition of bipartisanship on the Transportation Committee, on which I am honored to say that I once had the privilege of serving on. And I urge my colleagues to reject this rule. By the way, we have yet to have a truly open rule in this Congress. Notwithstanding the promises that we would see nothing but open rules, we have yet to have a single truly open rule. So I urge my colleagues to reject this rule and the underlying bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves for what purpose does the gentleman from Florida rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to continue with my time, and I will say this. I came here to talk about the rule. I didn't come here to talk necessarily about the underlying bill, although I do support the underlying bill. The rule is what's before us right now, not necessarily the policy that's underneath it. We'll be discussing that. There are amendments offered that will change many of the things, could change many of the things spoken of by my good friend from Massachusetts. But I ran for election to this House of Representatives based on the fact that I told people America is not broken, Washington is. One of the things that was broken in Washington was the process. The process that I saw, the process that was inherited by our own Speaker, was a process based on a pyramid of power. And that pyramid of power was so high, it's as high as the Space Needle probably. And a few people at the top of that pyramid are the ones that made the decision, not anyone else. So why were there so many closed bills? Because the pyramid of power said, this is what we're going to do, and this is what you got to do, and you got to go vote, unfortunately. And that's what I came here to change, and I think the Speaker did too. And he created a process by which there were amendments offered on the floor of this House on these bills so that people can address the problems that they have. So he has pushed down the pyramid of power and spread out the base. So every single member had an opportunity to file an amendment. And almost every one of those were made available to be used on the floor of this House by this rule. And it was done because we want the membership. We want, as the Speaker has said, he wants this to be the people's house. He wants the people to have an opportunity to have their member heard on particular issues and particular amendments. Yes, there'll be debate on this bill. There'll be debate on the underlying measure. And we'll be talking about that, and I'll be voting for that. But that's not what we're here to talk about right now. And that is, there is a process, it was broken, and we're doing everything we can to fix it. This rule helps do that. This rule is a rule that allows for open and honest debate on amendments, on the bill itself, and to me, that is a great improvement over where we've been in the past. So push down that pyramid of power, spread out the base, let every member be a player. Do it by voting for this rule. And I would yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. LaTourette.
Gentleman from Ohio is recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I thank the Speaker for the recognition. I want to begin by congratulating the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Webster. I understand this is the first rule he's managing, and you're doing a brilliant job so far, so hopefully that'll be the case for the next 50 minutes as well. I want to also congratulate Chairman Dreyer and the Rules Committee for coming up with this rule. I tell you, I've been here in the minority, I've been here in the majority, and this 33 amendments made in order under this rule beat by 28 the number that were made in order when we last considered this piece of legislation. So congratulations to you. And sadly, I think for my friends in my party, one of the amendments made in order is mine. It's what caused me, although I fully support the rule, going to vote for the rule, it's what causes me some angst relative to the bill. And I have to give a little bit of context and history. I was on the Transportation Committee when the first reauthorization of this bill was supposed to take place. This bill hasn't been reauthorized since 2003. This bill is about America's future because, among other things, it takes our air traffic control system from ground-based radar to satellite-based so that we can do a lot of wonderful things and continue to be the world leader. So we need to get this bill done. But a funny thing keeps happening to this bill on the way to the bank, I guess. We first had a fight between Federal Express and UPS. Really doesn't have a lot to do with NextGen, but that screwed up the bill for a while. Then we had a fight with the air traffic controllers and the Bush administration, and that screwed up the bill for a while. Then we had a problem with something called PFCs, how much a passenger pays as a landing charge. And those fees, of course, are then turned into runways and infrastructure, and they employ a lot of people, so we didn't have a bill. And then we almost got a bill. In the last Congress, you know, Jim Oberstar and John MICA and Costello and Petri did a really nice job, sent the bill over to the Senate, and a couple senators decided that they wanted to favor one airline over others and have additional flights, long-distance flights, from Reagan National Airport to their homes, I guess, on the West Coast. And so one airline would have received 48% of the benefit and everybody else would have gotten the scraps. We didn't have a bill. And again, you say, why do people get frustrated with Washington? What do any of those things have to do with whether or not we continue to be the world leader in aviation? So now we come to this bill, and I have to tell you there is a poison pill in this bill. The Senate will not take up the bill as currently written. The President issued a statement of administration policy last night indicating he will veto the bill, and it's all over this one issue. This one issue doesn't belong in the bill. Now, there are people around here that love unions, and the unions can do no wrong. There are people around here that hate unions, and unions can't do anything right. But what happened is the unions or the airlines and the railroads are organized and regulated under the Rail Labor Act as opposed to the National Labor Relations Board Act. It's been that way since the 1930s. And for years, the rule was that, 75 years actually, that if you wanted to certify a union, you had to get a majority of the people in the whole class. And Mr. McGovern is exactly right. Can you imagine there's about 200,000 people that are registered to vote in my congressional district. And so you stand for election, and if I got 70%, so 100,000 people show up, only half, which is about what we're averaging in this country, 100,000 people show up, 70,000 of them vote for me. I'm, you know, pretty happy, popping the champagne corks, thinking I got a nice election going. But under the structure that's been in existence for all these years, those 100,000 people who didn't show up, they're counted against me. They're counted as no votes. Americans don't understand that kind of election process. It just doesn't make any sense. And the arguments and the pushback against this are, well, it's been that way for 75 years. Now, the Speaker, I know, is a learned historian of American history. When the Constitution was written, only white men who owned property could vote in this country. And I'll bet if you asked the white guys that owned property back then, they were probably pretty happy about that, and they would say it works okay. For another 100 years, the women in this country couldn't vote. And maybe if you asked some of the men, they were probably happy about that as well. Just because something's been around for a long time doesn't make it right, doesn't make it fair. So the National Mediation Board, which has jurisdiction, changed the rule. They had a hearing, they asked for comments, they had a public meeting, they took a vote, and they changed the rule to the more fair procedure wherein those people that actually show up and vote, that's going to be the vote. Now, have horrible things happened since this rule went into effect? No. As a matter of fact, one of the prime proponents of this rule change, Delta Airlines, they've had 4 elections since the rules were changed. The union has lost all 4, and this dumb argument I heard the other day that only 3 people can come and form a union, that's nonsense. They had 94% turnout at their election. So this encourages turnout. The other thing I just want to mention is that, you know, there's a lawsuit pending on this. The Air Transport Association sued the National Mediation Board. They lost. I have an additional 30 seconds.
I'd like to yield an additional 30 seconds. Sorry.
30 minutes would be...
No, 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So they lost.
Gentleman's recognized for 30 seconds.
It's now in the Court of Appeals. But, you know, we do our darndest to say we're going to drain the swamp and do all the other stuff around here. But in this lawsuit, they got a lot of members, the Air Transport Association. But here are the airlines, and I'll let everybody listening and following at home figure out what's going on here. The following members of the Air Transport Association opted out of this lawsuit: American Airlines, Continental Airlines, Southwest Airlines, UPS Airlines, United Airlines, and U.S. Airways. This is a bad deal, and we shouldn't be doing it. Yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose? I mean, the gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
I yield myself so as time as I may consume. First, I want to commend Mr. LaTourette for his efforts on trying to promote fairness, and would reiterate that the issue in question has no business being in this bill. This should not have been put into this bill. It is, I consider it a poison pill, and again, I think it reflects this troubling pattern that we see all across the country, where my friends on the other side of the aisle seem to be siding against working people. I'd also just say about the process. We were told that there would be open rules, open rules, open rules. We have not had one. And every member on the Republican side in the Rules Committee has been given an opportunity to vote for an open rule, and they have voted it down every single time. This afternoon, we're going to take up this bill, this deem and pass bill, or whatever people are trying to, or whatever people are calling it, which I think is not constitutionally sound, but nonetheless we're bringing it up. We'll have another opportunity then to have a vote on an open rule, and I wonder where my friends on the Republican side will be on opening up that process. My guess it will come to the floor either under a closed rule or a very restricted process. So let's be clear: there's not been one truly open rule yet. At this point, I'd like to yield 5 minutes to the distinguished ranking member on the Rules Committee, the gentleman from New York, Ms. Slaughter.
The
Thank
lady
you
is
very much,
recognized
Mr.
for
Speaker.
5 minutes.
Thank you, and I appreciate my colleague for yielding, and I want to congratulate my colleague, Mr. Webster, on management of his first rule. I rise today in opposition to the Schuster Amendment that would undermine the strong flight safety regulations passed by this Congress and meant to protect the air travelers throughout the nation. Last July, Congress came together to pass the Airline Safety and Federal Aviation Administration Extension Act of 2010. It was landmark legislation requiring the FAA to implement the findings of the National Transportation Safety Board, which many of us thought the FAA already did, to establish a pilot records database to provide airlines with fast, electronic access to the pilot's record, to direct all airlines and websites to sell airline tickets, to disclose who is operating each flight, and of vital importance to those of us who live in western New York, make the necessary changes that address the underreported and deadly issue of pilot fatigue and inability to fly in bad conditions. My concern, Mr. Speaker, is that this amendment stands to undermine all of these reforms. It would lay additional layers to the FAA's already cumbersome rulemaking process, only delaying what we fought so hard to create last year, and we must not go back. Mr. Speaker, I have the privilege of representing Western New York, and flight safety is one of our highest priorities. It was outside Buffalo, in the suburb of Clarence, New York, on a snowy February evening that Continental Connection Flight 3407, operated by regional carrier Colgan Air crashed to the ground, killing all 49 passengers and 1 man on the ground. It was a tragedy deeply felt in western New York and sent shock waves throughout the aviation community. As we discovered more details that fateful evening, we learned that the young pilot had never been trained on stall recovery techniques, which were needed that snowy night, and had failed 5 different tests, but his employer only knew about 2 of those failures. One pilot had slept in the airport in a chair. The other had taken a red-eye flight from Seattle just the night before. It exposed delinquencies in commercial aviation that desperately needed solutions. Pilots are often exhausted and underpaid, and discrepancies in the training requirements exist between major carriers and their regional partners. And pilot records are inconsistent, meaning a pilot's entire flying record was not available to his employer. In the 2 years that followed, we took tremendous effort to learn from the lessons of that painful night. Led by heroic family members of the victims of Flight 3407, Congress passed the Airline Safety and Federal Aviation Administration Extension Act. I want to take a moment to recognize the courage and the tenacity of those family members. In the past 2 years, they worked through the grief of their own loss and advocated for safer skies for the rest of us. Collectively, they've made 40 trips to Washington on their own money, constantly reminding members of the House, Senate, and administration that improving aviation safety is never a cause that can be pushed aside. They have become the most effective group of citizens I have seen in my time in government. Every one of us, and we all do almost every week, who steps into an airplane owes them tremendously, and I am pleased to call them my friends. The nation cannot thank them individually, but this Congress can pass them by voting no on the Schuster Amendment. Because of their work and of those in Congress, there is no better way to mark the lessons we have learned as a nation about flight safety than by honoring the people who died on that cold and snowy night. This has been the mission of their families, and it has become a mission of mine. Any attempt to turn back the clock on landmark provisions we passed last July will hurt everyone, including all the members of Congress who, as I say, mostly fly back and forth to our districts each week. To think that the pilot flying that plane is so fatigued that he or she is not at their peak is astounding and dangerous to all of us. These safety provisions must stay intact. They must apply to all pilots. It should not take another tragedy for us to have to relearn the lessons of flight safety. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment, which should not be in this bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I still want to bring it back to the issue at hand. We're talking about a rule here. And I've found that no matter what you're making, you could be making widgets or you could be making laws. If the process is flawed, whatever you manufacture, whatever you make is flawed. And that's what we're trying to improve here. Previous Congress, I believe, had a flawed process. This is an improvement. It allows for 33 amendments. I'll remind everyone, there were 18 extensions of this particular piece of legislation over the past several years. Not one of them ever had an amendment offered on the floor of this House. This is one piece of legislation with 33 amendments being offered. That, to me, is an improved process. What happens when you improve the process? When you improve the process, the product is always going to improve. I have a business. I know, Mr. Speaker, you do. And you know that if everything you can do starts with first making that process better. That's what we're doing. That's what this rule does. It improves the process, and by improving the process, the product that's produced by this House, which is in question right now, because there are 33 amendments filed to this underlying bill that have been made available for this House to debate. So we don't know what the final product is going to be, and we'll have to wait and see. That's a whole lot better process than it is coming in and voting yes or no on a particular piece of legislation. I reserve the rest of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Let's talk about process. Notwithstanding the promises of open rules, we've been here for 13 weeks and not a single open rule. Not a single open rule. And I will tell you that there's something wrong with the process when, after all this time, we have yet to do anything to help create jobs or promote jobs in this country. Jobs are the most important issue. A couple weeks ago, we were dealing with National Public Radio. Is that the most? It was brought to the floor under an emergency rule. An emergency rule. What kind of process is that? You would think that we were going to talk about something important like the potential war in Libya or about how we put people back to work. Instead, an emergency rule was utilized to bring a bill to defund National Public Radio. There's something wrong with this process when we're talking about that and not talking about jobs. At this point, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Vermont, my friend Mr. Welsh.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman. I'm here to talk about the abandonment of essential air service in rural America. My problem with this bill, among others, is that this legislation turns its back on rural America. The FAA budget is about providing a transportation system that is going to serve all of America, all of our taxpayers, in urban and in rural areas. And this bill is an assault on the $200 million a year that had been available for essential air services in rural America. How is it that rural America gets left behind? We have needs, we have companies, we have taxpayers, and we have travelers. And we can have that commitment to rural America be continued, not abandoned. Let me give an example. The Rutland Southern Vermont Regional Airport serves southern Vermont. That county is rural, 63,000 people. There's no interstate access, Mr. Chair. To help ensure the 3 daily flights to and from Boston Logan International Airport, the air services are subsidized at $800,000 a year. It's a good and efficient use of taxpayer money. That airport has the 5th lowest EAS subsidy in the country, but has had the greatest number of passenger enplanements since 1985. This relatively small investment has spurred private investment in the region. We've got a GE plant there. We've got the local hospital. It resulted in $25 million in economic impact for the region. And in the past year, bookings have risen by 25%. So the question I have is, yes, kick the tires on any program, make them accountable, but how is it accountable and how is it responsible to rural America when the budget gets smashed and we're going to leave the Rutland regional airports of this country behind and we're turning our back on the prospects and hope of rural America? I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to remind the House again, we're talking about this rule. And there was an opportunity to file amendments on all the issues that are being brought up. There was an amendment filed on that very issue. It wasn't my fault. It was withdrawn. It was the sponsor's fault. It was withdrawn. Had it not been, there might have been a difference. It might have been heard here. We might have been able to discuss it. We wouldn't have to discuss it while we're discussing a rule. But for some reason, it was withdrawn. I also want to remind the membership, too, last Congress, 0 open rules. 0. None. No amendments were offered on this floor. It was like a silence that existed for a long period of time. No member could stand up and give an amendment to any type of piece of legislation. That's a sad thing. That, to me, is a broken process. And all we're trying to do, I'm glad Chairman Dreyer came, because you know what? He, too, along with the Speaker, has said we want to have as open a process as we possibly can. We want to allow for amendments. We want to allow for opportunities in a process that's better than last time. That'll, as we improve this process, we're also going to improve the policy that we present to this floor and to the public once it passes and is signed by the President. Yes, I yield.
I thank my friend for yielding, and I'd just like to say, Mr. Speaker, that I've listened to my friend from Worcester keep throwing out this term open rule, open rule. We've had all these chances for open rules, and we haven't passed a single open rule. Well, first, let me say, based on the definition that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle had, we've had open rules. bills considered under what we correctly describe as a modified open rule were described by our friends when they were in the majority as an open rule. Now, having said that, what we repeatedly said was that since in the entire 4 years of Speaker Pelosi's leadership of this House, we had one measure in 4 years considered under an open rule, we said in our Pledge to America that we wanted to make sure that the appropriations process is done under an open amendment process. And we're going to do our doggonedest to make sure that we have an open amendment process for consideration of that. And I think it's important to note that if you look at, as Mr. Webster said so well, and I want to congratulate him on his management of his first rule here in the House, making 33 amendments in order has not in any way predetermined the outcome of the measure when we had all of these extensions that went on for FAA. And my friend Mr. MICA, the chairman of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee is here. We know that we've had these constant renewals without a single amendment being offered. And so we're going to have 33 amendments. And so our commitment to a more open process has in fact been met and exceeded in the eyes of many. And I will tell you, the praise that we've gotten from members in the leadership on the Democratic side of the aisle for having gone through all of the amendments that we did, it was virtually unprecedented. On H.R. 1, the measure that allowed us to work overnight and have a modified open rule, meaning any member could offer a germane amendment, was, as I said, virtually unprecedented. And so I'm very proud of what we've done, certainly juxtaposed to what we've seen in the last 4 years. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that by virtue of our doing this, we're allowing the people of this country to have a chance to be heard that has not been there for quite a long period of time. And I again thank my friend for his superb management and yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Speaker. You myself, such time as it may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
I've listened with great interest. My friend from California, Mr. Dreyer, kind of amend a little bit about what the Republican majority promised. Now, I think I heard him right that open rules now are only limited to appropriations bills and nothing else.
Would the gentleman yield on that?
I'd have to yield.
I thank my friend for yielding. I never said that we're going to limit an open amendment process, open rules to the appropriations process. What I said was the commitment that we made was that since we had the appropriations process completely shut down in the last two sessions of Congress, we wanted to have now this done under an open amendment process. And I thank my friend for yielding.
I thank the gentleman for his clarification. It seems like, to me, a little bit of revisionist history, but I guess later this afternoon we're going to rewrite the Constitution, so why not rewrite history? We were promised open rules, and under the definition of an open rule, we have not had one single open rule in this Congress. And again, this afternoon we're going to be dealing in the Rules Committee with this deem and pass bill that is, again, I don't know. We had on this floor not too long ago the reading of the Constitution. I guess my friends on the other side of the aisle weren't paying attention, because what they're trying to do this afternoon is not, in my opinion, I think, or by anybody's opinion, does it fit with the Constitution? But it'll be interesting to see whether or not that comes to the floor under an open process. My guess, it will be a very restrictive process, which we've become accustomed to. At this point, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Higgins.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman. Madam Speaker, I rise to express my strong opposition to the amendment made in order under this rule, which would block the implementation of regulations to prevent pilot fatigue. Our current pilot fatigue regulations are outdated and have been on the books for decades. In that time, we have seen many preventable accidents occur due to pilot fatigue, including the crash of Flight 3407 near Buffalo, in which 50 people died 2 years ago. In response to that tragedy, and after a year of consideration, last year the House and the Senate unanimously passed legislation to update our pilot fatigue rules. They are pending implementation by the Federal Aviation Administration. These reforms have been on the National Transportation Safety Board's most wanted list for the past 20 years. They are based on science, on fact, on real input from the professional aviation community. However, the amendment offered by Mr. Schuster would have the effect of blocking their implementation. Pilots are people who have a huge responsibility to the flying public. It doesn't matter whether they are flying a cargo plane, a regional plane, or a large passenger plane. They need adequate rest to perform their duties. Quite simply, these pilot fatigue reforms will save lives. 50 lives were needlessly lost 2 years ago. Last year, we voted unanimously to enact these reforms due to the dogged advocacy and determination of the families who lost their loved ones in that crash. These families want nothing more than to make our airways safer and to prevent this tragedy from happening again. I urge my colleagues to stand with these families, to stand with aviation safety, and to please vote against the Schuster Amendment. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to yield 5 minutes to my friend from Florida. Continue to reserve my time, and then I'd like
Gentleman
to
continues to
yield,
reserve. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Madam Speaker, I would like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Boswell.
Gentleman from Iowa is recognized for 2 minutes. Without objection.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I thought I was first I would start off by acknowledging the efforts to open rule and so on and give you a little praise, but you're doing enough to give yourself praise, so I guess I won't have to do that today. I rise to oppose this rule. I rise to address yet another attack on our nation's workers in the middle class that have been snuck into the FAA Reauthorization Act. As a senior member of the committee and a pilot myself, I am appalled that Republicans have chosen to play politics with legislation as important as this, one that ensures our skies are safe and operating at peak performance. In H.R. 658, Republicans marched on in this crusade against working Americans and middle-class families by targeting union representation elections for hard-working Americans. Under this legislation, Republicans would deny transportation workers and their unions the basic tenets of democracy by ordering an absent vote in a representation election to be counted as a no vote. By this math, not a single one of us serving in the House today would be here when we compare voting populations in our districts with the percentage of yes votes we all mustered. On average, we have earned about 25% of the vote. In targeting our nation's transportation workers, Republicans have once again drawn a line in the sand between the needs of middle-class America and protecting the interests of CEOs and Wall Street, and it's obvious which side they're on. Instead of stripping our aviation and rail workers of their democratic rights, why don't the Republicans look within their own ranks and apply this election concept to Wall Street? From here on out, make every corporation that receives government assistance count an absent shareholder vote as a no vote when considering executive compensation and bonus packages. But that won't happen. Instead of focusing on real issues like jobs and education, Republicans are attacking middle-class rail and aviation workers who do dangerous jobs to keep our transportation system going. I urge my colleagues to stand with the middle-class workers who put their lives on the line every day at work to make sure that goods and people are being moved across this nation, and vote yes on the amendment be offered by Congressman LaTourette and Costello.
Gentleman's time has expired.
I yield
Gentleman
back.
from Florida.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, could I inquire? I have one more speaker, Mr. MICA, and then myself, and I'd like to inquire of Mr. McGovern, my friend, Mr. McGovern.
The gentleman from Florida has 12.5 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Massachusetts has 11 minutes remaining.
Yeah, we request for a number of people requested to speak. We have one other speaker who's present here, so if no one else shows up, you can go to Mr. MICA, and then I'll close for our side, you close for yours. So that's okay?
Okay, for the President, I'll reserve my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Scott.
Gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, the gentleman, for yielding. I rise in opposition to the rule because it includes a manager's amendment with problematic provisions. The manager's amendment will prevent the disclosure and use of safety data, provides immunity to all persons and organizations involved in the implementation of a safety management system, and provides total immunity for volunteer pilot organizations and referring agencies. By preventing the disclosure of safety information, the manager's amendment severely hinders the ability of people injured by the negligence of the aviation industry or their surviving family members from obtaining crucial information that they need in a court of law to determine whether or not their loss was due to the industry's negligence. It essentially allows the negligent airline companies and their employees to hide and keep evidence of their negligence secret. Additionally, by granting immunity to any person that is required to implement a safety management program or system. If for volunteer pilots and pilot organizations, the amendment would potentially provide immunity to the entire aviation industry. This immunity provision is so broad that it would protect individuals who negligently fail to follow a safety standard, even if that failure led to massive passenger deaths. Madam Speaker, this is outrageous and essentially asks airline passengers to put their lives in the hands of aviation teams who could possibly have no liability for any negligence that occurs during the flight. This is unnecessary. This is unnecessary because we already have in law Volunteer Protection Act, which provides immunities for volunteers. This amendment will interrupt the careful balance achieved through that act by giving volunteer organizations and others immunity as well. The airline industry is free to purchase liability insurance to ensure that people are protected from negligent acts of its employees. This amendment exempts the industry from having the responsibility for the safety of the public and its employees. It is certainly not in the best interest of the flying public. So this rule should be defeated so that that amendment cannot be offered. I yield back the balance of my
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I want to go back again to where we were. We're talking about a rule. We're talking about a process, a good process that allows for amendments. And I know that the other side is thinking, well, we've got to come in here and argue this bill. We've got to argue the underlying part. You don't. You've got plenty of time to do it because this rule will allow for good, lengthy debate, not only on the bill itself, but also the 33 minutes that have been offered. And I would encourage them to think about the fact that this rule is what we're voting on, and this rule is a good rule, an open process, one that allows for every member to participate. And I would tell them, again, vote for this rule. That's my response to any of the criticisms of this bill. Yes, they're going to be addressed by an amendment. Come, make your case, and see if you can pass it. And I'd like to yield 5 minutes of my time to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. MICA.
The gentleman from Florida, Mr. MICA, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you. And Mr. Webster is correct, Madam Speaker, that this is about the rule. And the Rules Committee serves a very important purpose because we have 435 members. When we come to the floor, you just can't have chaos. There has to be some structure. All members are afforded the opportunity to speak. If we go through our regular business, I won't at this time because I have very limited time and you have lots of time left, so I won't yield. And mine is limited, and that's part of the process. Again, I was just yielded 5 minutes. So the Rules Committee sets the order of debate, how much time there shall be, how many amendments that are submitted. Now, I've been here a while. My family's been around Congress a while. The last 4 years, for anyone to come and say that this is an unfair rule, it is so far from being accurate. 50 amendments were offered, and as the chair of the committee, I pay attention to the amendments. I went before the Rules Committee and asked that they carefully consider these. And what you want to do is make sure you don't have duplicate, you don't have non-germane, you don't have, and be fair to members so everybody gets a chance. Some 48 were offered, 48 actually, I understand. 39 were left after members that withdrew them. 33 were accepted. That leaves 6 that they took out. If that's unfair in any way, it's hard to believe. So we have been fair. Mr. Webster's been fair. Mr. Dreyer's been fair. I've never seen a fairer process. And in the last 4 years, when the place was run under basically martial law, you couldn't bring amendments up. Then how did we get ourselves in this situation? For 4 years, they had complete control of this body. They could have passed anything. But what did they do? They passed things, but they passed so much and spent so much that the American people threw them out. They had enough votes in the House to pass anything. They had enough votes in the Senate to pass anything. And the last 2 years, they've had a president that would sign anything. This aviation bill, 17 times they did an extension. I was the chairman in 2003 when we did a 4-year bill. We did a 4-year bill. It expired in 2007. My bill expired that I helped draft and author in 2003, expired after 4 years in 2007. 17 times they let the aviation policy, the funding formula, all the programs for safety and everything go on the most erratic basis you could imagine. 17 extensions, costing the taxpayers millions of dollars. Go talk to the FAA administrator. And every time they did that, what they did to the disruption of one of the most important industries in the United States, 9.2% of our gross domestic product and activity is in the aviation industry. And they had 4 years to pass it. Unbelievable. And in less than 4 months, we've already worked with the United States Senate. They passed the bill. We passed it through 2 other committees, and now our Transportation and Infrastructure Committee is bringing it up here under a fair rule, one of the most open rules with open participation by all members on every side. So don't talk to me about fairness and rules. This is fair. Let's get it done and pass this rule. Get the people's business done and get people working in the United States of America instead of more hot air passing through this chamber. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I am the last speaker on our side, so if you have other speakers, I'll let you go.
We have no other speakers, Madam Speaker, and so I would say I'll reserve the rest of my time and then
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am amazed by the comments of the gentleman from Florida when it comes to rules, because when we were in charge of the House, I don't recall a single time where the gentleman came before the Rules Committee and did not advocate for an open rule. This is not an open rule. Members who have ideas that they want to bring to the floor in response to amendments that are being offered will be denied that opportunity. And there is a restriction on the ability of members to be able to participate in the debate. Under a true open rule, every member would have at least 5 minutes if they chose to be able to talk on a bill. So it's interesting, this revisionist history by the Republicans who promised open rules but have not produced a single open rule yet. That's just a fact. And we can spin it any way you want to, but you promised open rules, and we haven't seen a single one yet. Now, as far as the bill goes, H.R. 658, one of the reasons why we are concerned is that because this is a job-destroying bill. We should be obsessed in this Congress about protecting jobs and creating jobs, yet what we have seen is attention being given to everything else but jobs. A couple weeks ago, we spent a whole week on National Public Radio. Should we defund National Public Radio when people are out of work? And here you bring a bill, H.R. 658, to the floor that will destroy American jobs, with $4 billion in cuts that will have dire consequences for our nation's infrastructure, jobs, and economy. The aviation industry, I'll remind my friends, accounts for nearly 11 million American jobs and $1.2 trillion in annual economic activity. This Republican bill would cut the airport improvement grants for runway maintenance and safety enhancements by almost $2 billion, costing us 70,000 jobs, especially hurting small airports. The Senate measure passed with a bipartisan majority adds tens of thousands of jobs. Now, this bill cuts, there are cuts in this bill that would also lead to a reduction in safety personnel and delay important air safety initiatives, a bad choice for the flying public as highlighted by the recent Reagan national incident. In February, the FAA administrator under President George W. Bush, Marion Blakely, stated that, and I quote, "The prospect is really devastating to jobs and to our future if we really have to roll back to 2008 levels and stop NextGen in its tracks," end quote. This bill also eliminates essential air service for 110 rural communities needed to connect them with global commerce and support local jobs and spur economic growth. You know, it's important to invest in our infrastructure in order to keep this economy strong. And this bill, as has been said over and over again, extends the assault on American workers collective bargaining, and the middle class to workers in the aviation and railroad sectors. This bill overturns a rule for union elections which, as with other elections, calls for a majority of votes cast to win. This continues this pattern, this assault on American workers. You know, I don't know when, I asked my friends on the Republican side, when did the American worker become the bad guy? You know, my friends on the other side go out of their way to protect Wall Street. You know, under their open process, when they brought up their H.R. 1, their bill that cuts all these essential programs, they wrote it in a way that it protected the taxpayer subsidies to big oil companies so we couldn't get at them. It protected, you know, all these special interest tax loopholes that are there for big business and big corporations. And, you know, and after what happened to our economy, this mess that was created in large part by Wall Street, here we go again with this Republican majority attacking working families, workers. Well, someone's got to stand up for working families and workers, and I'm glad that there are members on my side of the aisle that are willing to do that. This controversial provision should not be in this bill. This is a throwaway to the extreme right wing, and it should not be in this bill. Madam Speaker, let me close by saying we need to start talking about jobs and how we protect jobs and create jobs. This bill, because of the dramatic cuts in this bill, will destroy jobs. You want to find savings? Go after taxpayer subsidies to the oil companies. You want to find savings? Then then if you're going to fight these wars, pay for it. You want to find savings? Close some of these grotesque tax loopholes for the richest interests in this country. Instead, you go after things that help average American families, that go after American workers. This is wrong. I urge my colleagues to vote against this rule, which is not open, and I urge my colleagues to vote against the underlying bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Florida.